Okay, and we are live. And if you happen to be looking at this on YouTube, you're watching the raw, unedited version of the Sunday Morning Linux Review, which actually consists of 2 episodes that we do on YouTube. So you'll have to sit there a long time to get through it all. But if you wish to listen to the final version of our show, which will be 2 separate episodes, please go to smlr.us. Thank you. That's the smoothest I've done that.
The Sunday Morning Linux Review.
This gets cut out anyway.
Mary Tomich, Tom Lawrence, and Tony Bemis as the Beaver.
And this is episode 185.
Leaping Spring, or is it Spring Leaps?
Spring Leaps? Sure.
Yeah.
Leaping forward. I don't know. There's a lot of people that don't like that leaping forward thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know what I used
Daylight savings.
Yeah, and today's the first day of spring, so we're all in a very spring-like happy mood, except for Tony, because he has a little injury.
Yeah, I'm still in a kind of a happy mood, just not my arm. Right?
Your arm's not happy, but the rest of you is.
Right. Anyway, this is Tony Bemis.
Mary Tomich.
And Tom Lawrence.
Yeah, and my news for this bi-weekly thing is I was moving a ladder for my father-in-law, and I went to put it in the back of his truck, and as I was setting it down, my elbow went pop, and then my elbow went backwards. and yeah,
we're all cringing.
Yeah, it was I did the same thing. I cringed more than it actually hurt. There wasn't a whole lot of pain, which I'm still kind of surprised, but it was more of I could still
How
move
many
my
beers
elbow
had you had
and back
before
and
then?
forth.
No, I'm just kidding.
I was at 0.
No, I'm kidding.
Years after.
It's been about 1 a day. I need a little bit of relaxation. No. Anyway, there's so I went to my doctor the next day, and he said that I had a torn elbow tendon. He didn't say torn. He said ruptured elbow tendon or bicep tendon. I'm saying there's no elbows, or the elbow doesn't have a tendon.
The elbow's connected to the what?
I'd have to sing a song to remember.
But it's the one going down from
anatomy was not your strongest class, right, Tony? You're not studying that, are you, this semester?
No.
Okay.
Right. But it's on the inside of your bicep, the tendon that goes down into your forearm, and that one is what went pop. So I can't lift anything over, say, a
beer
glass of beer, right? And if I try to do more than that, it starts hurting.
Wow. Can you turn the steering wheel?
I drive only with my right arm. So luckily it was my non-dominant arm.
Oh, yeah, that is good.
So that's a big difference. Anyway, so I went and saw the specialist, and he took an x-ray and says, yep, I agree with your doctor. And now he wants to get an MRI because he said it's strange that I still have strength in my wrist, but where if the tendon was ripped, I assume I wouldn't be able to turn my wrist as much. And also at the same time, I learned that your bicep actually deals more with turning your wrist than actually like lifting straight up with your. And that's what he said. I learned it from him, and so I thought that was interesting.
You're telling me all those arm curls I used to do at the gym to increase my bicep were just worthless? Apparently it seems that way, though, let me just tell you. I'm kidding.
Anyway, so I'm getting an MRI done this next week.
Oh, so next time we meet, then we'll have a kind of a little update as to how that went.
Yeah, either update or hopefully I can even make it. I know it depends on when the surgery is and when, how I'm feeling afterwards. And
well, just good luck with that tube. So I had an MRI done for my foot, and it's loud. You have to just stay perfectly still.
Yeah.
And they actually had I wore headphones with some music in there. So I said, well, give me the new agey electronic music.
Right.
And then you just can't move. And then after about 20 minutes, it just, I don't know, it's just kind of weird. Yeah. But you get through it.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that the way X-ray machines uses radiation to to find the differences, what it's passing through, and then you can see your bones and stuff inside your body. Where MRI actually works on magnets and magnetic fields, and so that's where all that noise comes from. Is I don't know if it's magnets whirling around you or something is spinning around you that.
Well, they're probably they're electromagnets. Oh, that's a good point too, because I could not. Yeah, if you have like a pin or you have some kind of plate, they want to know.
Yeah. Right, you have to tell them
you're
any
stuck
kind
to the
of
machine.
magnetic.
They turn it off. Oh my God, he's stuck.
And if you want to be amused, type in MRI fail, and there's some incidents that have occurred that made for some great photos on the internet. Basically, it's where something was too close that was metal and smashed into the MRI machine at great velocity.
Oh my goodness!
Wow!
Like even chairs, it'll pull a chair right in.
Really? Holy cow!
Wow!
Yeah, I know this one where I'm doing it. It's a new addition to the building. It's been in use for less than a year. So
okay.
They said it's the best. Yeah, it's the best magnets that they have in the entire system.
The best magnets, which probably means the strongest. So be sure not to have a watch on. I had to take my watch off.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll go through and do all the pre-tests and stuff to make sure. But.
And the people stand in a different room, so something something bad might happen.
That always makes you nervous.
They're hiding.
Right. Yeah, actually, what's
we'll
kind
hide
of cool
in here. You're fine.
Right. I did the whole network setup for this new addition.
Oh, cool.
How confident are you?
Yeah, I know everything's working.
Okay, good. All right. Well, good luck with that, Tony.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, I don't go into Facebook a lot, and I think that's how I found out about it. You posted something in Facebook.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't remember seeing you on there much. And within a day or something, you responded. So it was just serendipitous, right?
Yeah, because it's the only way I find out about my family. So I don't check on them that often in Facebook. But anyway, so good luck.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mary.
All right. Of course, I went to the Semibug Southeast Michigan BSD Users Group meeting this past Tuesday and had a great time there. Actually, I had an informative time. I always learn something there. This last meeting, Michael W. Lucas was there talking about file systems and including ZFS and then a host of other file systems, including some of the ones I mentioned.
Yeah, he's got a great book on the topic.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. I talked about that.
Listen to our last Fresh Looks.
That's right. It's an excellent book. So I went and did that. The other thing too, I was listening. There was a little blurb on TV. Apparently, there's a storm going up the East Coast this weekend, and they were talking about the U.S. models versus the European models for storm prediction, snowfall prediction, and everything, and that the European models have been over the last few years, I guess, far more accurate, or at least more accurate than ours.
Well, that's a low bar.
I'm sure Donald Trump will fix that.
Yes. And more accurate in our news reporting is a low bar to jump over.
Well, but they were showing some little video clips of the supercomputers that they use, and when you think about having to model the entire atmosphere,
it's huge.
It is, and when they use Cray supercomputers. So that got me thinking. And by the way, too, what I did find out is that. And that was part of this little news article, is that the U.S., the national, NOAA, NOAA, they did update their computers and this year. So they're now every bit as good as the ones in Europe. So good. See, Trump's not even in office yet. And look at that.
Yeah, look at that.
Just kidding. But the thing I wanted to mention is that Cray Research uses a customized version of Linux to run those computers. But what I found out, and I didn't realize this, is that it's SLUS. SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, which Cray takes, and then of course completely customizes specifically for their machines to run it. So I then went out to the SUSE blog, because I kind of, you know how it goes. You start researching one thing, and that leads to something else, and that leads to something else. Although I managed to stay on topic for the most part. But I went out to SUSE's blog, and they were talking about those computers, but they were also mentioning that I think three of the top 10 supercomputers in the world use a version of SUSE Linux. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Linux dominates a lot of the supercomputer world. I mean, I remember years ago going when the Beowulf clusters first started becoming popular, and it's just really grown from there. I mean, Linux dominates, in that world.
Yeah, I think BSD only has like one or two for whatever reason. But The other thing too is that you know what happened this week. This week was a kind of a celebratory week. We had St. Patrick's Day. We also had Pi Day,
Yes.
which I took note of. But there was a little blurb in, I think, Slashdot that I saw. So I kind of followed that, and there was a question about how many digits of pi does NASA use. And apparently mathematicians have calculated it out to more than 13 trillion decimal places. But NASA only needs to go out 16 in order to properly position or calculate the position of the probe, when they slingshot out. And, the orbits are kind of round or whatever. But, they go.
Only 16 digits, really?
Yeah. They needed only 15 decimal places. But here's what they said here. The most distant spacecraft from Earth is Voyager 1. It's about 12.5 billion miles away. So if they had, they go through the whole calculation, but if they only went one digit lower, I think they would have been like an inch, 1.25 inches off.
Wow.
So I think
that's actually really interesting.
Yeah, and I thought so too, but that's so interesting. It says, think about that. We have a circle more than 78 billion miles around, and our calculation of that distance would be off by perhaps less than the length of your little finger.
Wow.
That far.
That's some practical pi information.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, just stuff that I was thinking about and kind of caught my eye.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
And then the last thing is I had to do a bunch of updates to my desktop, and there was a System D desktop. System D update. And I'll tell you what, something got kind of borked, I think, because I now boot up to a grub screen, which I never did before. I had that all kind of suppressed in the background. And it also takes me 3 reboots to actually get in. So
That's not good.
It is not good. But I will also admit that my desktop's about 8 years old. So I think it's about ready to fail.
That should be replaced.
Yeah. I have a motherboard sitting in the closet. So I'm, ready to.
I have a faster Raspberry Pi than your 8-year-old desktop. I'll throw that out there.
Actually, to me, it sounds like you're having a file system problem. There's a corrupt file or somewhere, because when you said it takes multiple reboots, do you know where it's hanging?
No, it's hanging at the blank screen. That's where it's hanging.
If you do like
F9 or
F10, F8, 8, 9, or 10, or one of those is what Ubuntu uses, or Kubuntu uses to show the boot up messages.
I don't think you can get that far because I see some of those, and then it flips to a kind of a graphical eye candy thing.
Yeah, so they cover it up with with one of the other consoles. So if you flip to, it's either 8 or 9.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. Then you'll start seeing those again.
Okay.
Or sometimes if you just hit escape, it'll show it to you.
Yeah, I'll check into it. But the other issue I have is that external. I try to plug in I put a blank DVD in because I wanted to do some work on this. This Linux distro, and I couldn't even get K3B to recognize it. That's weird, but I can put an audio CD in there and it will recognize it and mount it. So, but blank ones, it doesn't. It's just pretty odd.
Yeah.
I'm blaming CD.
All right.
Anyway, that's my stuff.
So, one thing I finally get around doing, I designed a new logo for my company a little while ago, and I finally got around rebranding all my pages, my business page, my YouTube page, and everything else with the new logos. So I got that done.
shirt on right now, don't you?
And I got shirt on.
It looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we'll probably use the same company to get some shirts for the Sunday Morning Linux reviews. So
yeah, we're coming out with shirts, people.
We'll have shirts.
It's going to be cool looking.
Be cool looking. We'll be ready for Penguin Con. We'll match.
Oh yeah.
The more interesting thing that occurred was the couple of this has happened to more than one of my clients, and recently
that
another
Bo
one
called you guys and said, "Wow, look at those! Look at those fashion statements."
Look at that fashion statements.
Just kidding.
But I had a client got hacked, and what had happened was, and so many clients, I mean,
we know what happened. They didn't listen to you.
No, we do the best. We suggest all the things, and of course, they always go, "We don't remember you suggesting that." I'm like, "Come on." So they did not have two-factor authentication turned on because that's inconvenient. They have passwords that are stupid simple. And yeah, it's really hard to get people to come up with even the minimum 8 characters. Like, really? I had a bunch of them they still want 4 digits to be their passwords. And I said, you can't do that. It doesn't accept that. Why not? Can't you override it? Those are the kind of messages I have with all these people. Well, one of them, after losing $20,000, has gotten serious about security and getting rid of his Windows XP machines.
Yeah.
In short, what had happened was the exact source I don't know, but they had so much spyware on their computer. I don't know which one of the programs was the result. There's so much of it. We just wiped the computer. They had figured out the owner's email, username, and password. And then they pretended to be the owner of the company, which included them reversing out the org chart and figuring out who to send the emails to transfer funds. So they transferred the president of the company, someone acting as them on their email, sent a message to the financial officer to transfer funds to another account. They thought nothing of it, and they transferred the money, which was promptly withdrawn. And when they contacted the bank, they knew they were being watched, because when the president of the company sent an email to the bank to let them know that this was fake, 10 minutes later, another email was sent back that said, no, it's fine. We found it. This is all legit. So they knew the person was still in their email.
Wow.
We tracked in they use Google hosted apps. We tracked the logins, and we got a private IP company out of New Jersey, and the other IP addresses were all out of Dubai via some VPN company. I can't remember the name of the company because it was strange like that. But nonetheless, this is some of the stuff we deal with. And, it's sad because this is not the first client that happened to, but always after, they're so much more concerned about security. They're suddenly interested in actually getting rid of Windows XP and interested in not using Internet Explorer anymore for all their transactions.
Really?
It's,
oh, wait a minute. Maybe Tom was right.
yeah. I just like clicking the blue icon, though. It's convenient. It's there. My bookmarks and my favorites. It has all my passwords saved in the browser.
Yeah.
As I recommend, using LastPass. I have a write-up on this on my blog, too, for Lawrence Systems. And I send the blog links out to my clients like, hey, look, here's LastPass. You should use this. Hey, here's a link. You guys should think about this, and they just kind of, well, it's too inconvenient, which is unfortunate.
Well, what you should do is say, hey, here's what will happen if you don't consider this, or if you don't give this serious consideration.
The
Maybe
mentality of small businesses is so much of that's an enterprise problem. Large companies get attacked. We're too small. We only have 15 people in our office. No one would attack us. That's on the head in the sand. We don't think we're just too small of a target. Right. And it impacts them more significantly because they don't choose the amount to steal based on the size of the company. They choose what they can get away with. And for a small business that may not have any type of cybersecurity insurance or any way to do it, when they talk about losing 20 grand, that's very detrimental. They're like, how are we going to make payroll Friday? And one of the previous ones this happened to, they actually did it as they sent an email to the hacker had sent an email to the bank saying, we started a new payroll company, and the entire payroll transfer occurred one day before the payroll transfer was supposed to occur to a different bank account.
Oh.
And that was how, and they same thing. They were in their email. They had engineered an email to the bank saying, we switched payroll companies. Here's the new accounts to deposit the payroll into. And because they were using like ADP, and they allegedly switched to this other company, and they had an account set up for the money to land into and everything.
Holy cow.
So, and they completely lost their payroll. It was
wow.
And they got it back and everything, but it's not easy.
But
it's a mess.
all the time that they had to spend doing that could have been spent
very
on
disruptive.
other things.
Very disruptive. So that was the bigger incident that happened. Other than that, everything else is going well, and it was spring here. I was out riding my motorcycle. I got a new camera I was playing with and stuff. It's on my YouTube page, but or my Google Plus page, which is tied to my personal YouTube. But other than that, not too much else. Got plenty of news items, so we're ready for that. So
one of them
kind of goes back to some open source testing tools for the human body and science in general.
Really?
Yeah, it relates to Tony. We got to open source those things too.
Right.
And if we open source, we don't know how your body works too.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to throw 100 Raspberry Pis together and make our own.
We'll make our own MRI.
Right.
All right.
I don't know if you saw I think Joel McLaughlin, he had there was like a little YouTube video of this Raspberry Pi Beowulf cluster.
Yeah.
There was like 35, I don't know, there was 30 plus of these in there. And then the guy had this one that was kind of the master node, and as part of this video, he had these LEDs that were just all flashing around in very kind of a synchronized fashion. It really looked pretty cool. I liked it just for the LEDs that were flashing.
That could be a fun Fresh Looks episode we could do. It's just some of the fun Raspberry Pi projects out there. I mean, computing has never been so cheap to build something that does something cool.
It's amazing. Oh, you know what? I was going to order that new Raspberry Pi, but I ran into a glitch and then I kind of forgot about it. I'll have to do that.
Someone made a clustering board to tie all the Raspberry Pis together, which was kind of cool. So if you need more computing power, it's a board that mounts Raspberry Pis. And it's pretty cool. So you can create some of that. And Western Digital released a miniature direct plug-in hard drive for the Raspberry Pi. Very small. I think it's like 300 gig hard drive, but it's so you can have a little bit bigger storage on there. I still find it's odd. It's a spinning disk hard drive, which really kind of surprised me. Yeah. Because if you didn't see, now granted it's cheap, that the terabyte SanDisk SSDs are on sale for only $199 on Amazon.
Really?
Yes. A lot of my friends ordered them.
Wow. If
I didn't already spend money on 512 ones, I would have bought one. I just don't know what to do with it. It's a good price, but I don't have a need for it yet.
But well, now what's the lifespan of that?
So far,
what are they SanDisk? I mean, what's
there's a guy doing a wear leveling, long-term wear leveling. If you just Google long-term wear leveling and SSDs, he's got some smaller ones like 32 gigs, and he's doing an amazing read-write job. It has been for years, persistent read-write, trying to wear one out, and it turns out they're really, really hard to wear out.
Oh, that's good to know.
And he's built his own test scenario for it. So his usage level on these is extremely high, way higher than what you would use over years. And he's trying to see how many years it would take. So he's simulating just absolute persistent full drive rewrite and trying to see how long it takes to wear them out. Wow. He has had some reporting, has had some bad sectors and different failures. But overall, I mean, SSDs.
But regular spinning hard drives have those too, don't they?
Yeah, they all wear out.
Yep.
Well, you know, speaking of that, I think I've talked about I've got one computer at home that's got an SSD for the operating system, and then it's got spinning disks for just my documents and all that kind of stuff, which is in a folder called My Documents. just kidding. But anyway, I had to do something yesterday from that computer, and yes, I will admit it runs Windows, but not by choice, just by necessity. And so I had to access something on the drive, which had been kind of put into a little hibernate mode because I hadn't used it in 24 hours. And it's kind of interesting to hear that thing there's a pause. Yeah. I can hear the disk start to spin up and then it goes out and accesses the file. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, man, if I had an SSD for that, I wouldn't have to worry about that thing spinning up.
Yeah.
So,
SSDs are, I mean, they're, says it Samsung just shipped the 16 gig enterprise one SSD. Now it's not, it's something in around of $8,000. So it's not something for consumer. Yeah, sorry, 16 terabyte.
I was going to say, that's out of my price range.
Yeah.
That's really big.
Well, it still is.
Yeah, but they're slotting them towards the enterprise level because it won't be long before spinning disks. I mean, they need them for the storage, and we've already got like the 15,000 RPM helium field ones that we're seeing in enterprise, but you know, it won't be long. They'll all be SSD because speed is king. That's what they're doing everything they can, and now we're finally getting the price down on.
And they're using helium.
And the new spinning ones, to get them to the RPMs they need something lighter than air.
Huh. I know there's a joke in there, but well, no. But on the more serious note, helium is one of those gases that's kind of.
Yeah, they don't see a huge future. I mean, it's like a now thing.
Okay.
With the they don't see the future of it. They know the future is going to be SSD. We're not there yet. We're still working on more and more storage. We've looked at some. I think IBM's made a release on their optical storage systems that are basically like using 3D cubes and cross-sectioning lasers to come up with some really innovative storage. I don't think anything's ready for the mainstream production, but they're talking about terabytes in less than a square inch.
Wow.
So they could really store, and this is, you know, with big data and all these companies just accumulating data at the rate they're accumulating it, it's a big necessity to keep coming up with faster and faster drives.
Sounds like a hoarder.
I'm a data hoarder, I won't lie.
I try to clean stuff out. It's just.
I still have stuff I downloaded, like the what was that? The
I have stuff from 20 years ago
and stuff like that. Remember those? So you can get them on the bulletin board systems. Any of the text files, I have all of that.
Those alt boards, remember that?
All the alt boards, and then
I have. Oh, I will admit I do have stuff from there back in the mid '90s, so it's 20 years old. But it's only because I know I can't find it anywhere probably now. But I do try to get rid of stuff that, like I was on our neighborhood community association board a couple years ago, and I had all this stuff, and I'm thinking I don't want any of that. I'm getting rid of it, so I did delete it.
I still have all my emails from when I worked in corporate IT back in '99. I don't know why. I don't have a good reason to keep them. I just never deleted anything.
Okay.
I
It's the
archived
same
it
with me.
all.
I don't delete any emails, but it's been maybe once
Hillary
I've
did.
gone back and looked at an email from a year ago, but I still have emails from the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Well, Snyder, now speaking of emails, not to digress, but those emails are kind of coming out piecemeal. Is that normal? And what are they doing, reviewing them? Do you think there's like a little cache of emails somewhere that they're saying, oh my God, these are the smoking guns, we can't let them out?
Part of it too, and they're supposed to be redacting certain things, like the email addresses are supposed to be redacted off of some of it. So you know the person's name it was sent to, but not their exact email address. So they're
Well, you can infer that, you know what I mean?
yes, if you knew their naming schema, you can probably
Yeah.
figure it out. But there's some of that's in there. So I guess I don't know what all they're auditing it for.
Yeah, okay. We won't get off on that topic.
it's a
That's the
whole
Flint
nother-
water. Although I was asked to help with a website for, there's like a Moms for Flint. There's going to be some kind of a rally, I think on Mother's Day. And they needed a website and so I volunteered to put that together. So that's what I'm in the process of doing.
You know, if you're looking for some deeper local information on that, there's a really good podcast that the guys right here at Podcast Detroit, the IT and the D, they brought some people in from the government and things like that, or people that really had intimate knowledge of the process that were from that area and gave a good deep dive into the Flint water crisis.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree.
a lot of good information in there.
All right.
All right.
All right, back to you, Tony.
Back to Linux.
Great. So we are going to move on to.
We want to hear from you. Call 734-258-7009 or email show@smlr.us with your feedback and questions.
That's right. Listener feedback.
Yes.
So we have a few emails that came through, and Mary, I know you have a couple that you brought up. What did you see?
Oh, well, I got, Michael W. Lucas, author, wonderful author.
Book extraordinaire.
That's right. Actually, he also writes novels too.
Yeah, I've seen on his page he's into fiction writing and things. So,
But I'm more interested in his.
and he's very amusing.
Yeah, he is. He's got a kind of a quirky sense of humor, which I really appreciate. But anyway, he just wrote to thank us for reviewing his books on the show. And he also wanted to mention he's going to be at PenguinCon. So anybody listening that plans to attend PenguinCon this year, you'll get a chance to see him. He's got, I think he told me he's got several. He's going to be on several panels or several. He's got several slots. Let's just say that he's going to be speaking, and so I'm looking forward to hearing that. And speaking of speaking, is that meta speaking? Meta speaking. Anyway, did we mentioned at the start of the show, Tom, that you're going to be at Semibug next month?
Next month, Semibug. So any listeners that are going to be there, I'll be talking about PF Sense.
Yeah, so that people are looking forward to that. We had some Linux crossovers at our last meeting, so just wanted to say that.
Yep, he's also doing the same talk
Friend
at
of the
Mug.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll be talking at Mug,
Yeah.
Semibug.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm excited. I love getting up there and talking. That's it. Some people like fear of public speaking.
Oh,
I'm like,
not me.
I'm like,
I love getting out there.
yeah, I'm like, it's fun.
Especially if I know what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah. And if I don't, it's just interesting.
Otherwise, I just fake it.
Yeah.
And it's all in the same month. So April's this busy for me. I got Semibug, Mug, Mensa. I'm going to be talking apparently they give me the stage for 2 hours to talk about why open source matters in government and personal.
Hey.
So I'll be talking to a bunch of really smart people and picking apart open source.
Cool.
So, and PenguinCon.
Cool. And we also got an email from Bill, and he has an idea for the show. He said he first of all enjoys the show. We really appreciate the comments. But he's interested in a show around installing and utilizing Linux distros on a USB stick. So he says he believes there's a lot of information out there, but nothing in a central location. I think there's like a pen drive. Isn't there there's one site I'm aware of, pendrivelinux.org. I believe it's
Yeah,
called.
and that's one I've used in the past. But the hard part is there's so many tools on there. It's hard to tell what's current and what's made to be created from a Linux computer opposed to a Windows computer and things like that. So
Yeah, so we're gonna. I think our plan is to talk about that and maybe
Fresh Looks.
our next Fresh Looks, our next episode.
Yeah.
So we'll we'll do that, Bill. But thanks for the discussion idea. We'll follow up.
Yeah.
So that was another listener feedback we got. Anything else?
I see one email is from LibreOffice that 5.1.1 has been released. I haven't looked into it. I don't know what's all there, but anyway.
Hey, but it's out there.
You're right.
It's out there for your use and pleasure.
And
Anything else?
that's all I saw.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't see any other.
All right.
All right. Then I guess we're moving on to
Distro Fever, where we cover the latest hot distro releases and news.
all right. Are you pumped up, Mary?
Well, actually, yeah. As a matter of fact, I am, because I think during this last week, FreeBSD is creeping ever so closer to its release, 10.3. They've they just released their second release candidate. A lot of releases in that sense. But anyway, so I'm very much looking forward to that. And the other thing I wanted to mention too is that my favorite security operating system, Cubes, just released 3.1. And I tell you what, that I'm really enjoying. I'm following this this particular Linux distribution. And one thing to note in this most recent release, and I actually tried to get it set up, but unfortunately, that USB and CD problem I talked about earlier with my workstation got in the way. But they've got instructions for installing it on a USB stick. So that might be a good project for me to try once I get everything sorted out at home. But they've got that available, so you can then run it right off a USB stick if you want to. Their recommendation is not to run it in a virtual machine, which, to me, that seems like it kind of defeats some of the purpose of it anyway. Why would you have the security inside a virtual machine that is running on a less secure host?
Right.
So that that kind of caught my eye. The other thing too, I want to mention about these releases that are on DistroWatch this over the last couple of weeks. You probably saw too, Linux from Scratch came out with 7.9. I downloaded that document, and one of these times I am going to surprise you all and just say, you know what, I did it. So,
all right.
But I didn't do it yet. I'm working on it. What about you guys? Anything catch your eye?
Nothing really eye-catching. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
That's all right.
Not been a super exciting week.
No, that's fine. That's fine. The other thing I want to mention too about recent distributions or distros, there's something out there called Redox. Have you heard about that?
No.
Well, I did.
All right. What is it?
Well, I'll explain it. It's actually a general purpose operating system and surrounding ecosystem that's written in Rust. Now, Rust was a language that I think had its start at Mozilla.
Is it getting old?
It's getting old. Well, it's but it's not that Rust, which is the oxidation of metal,
Right.
certain types of metal, ferrous, I think it is. But anyway, Rust in this context, they took it from the virus or the fungus, not virus, but fungus that will sometimes infect plants where they look kind of rusty.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I'm just going to move on there. There's about 4 jokes, but anyway.
It's at redox-os.org.
Yeah, and they're according to the project, their goal in developing this operating system is to provide a fully functioning Linux replacement without the bad parts. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about those bad parts are, but I'm sure we probably get a semi-consensus on a few of them. But yeah, so, and they, interestingly enough, they take inspiration, according to what they've said on their site, from Plan 9, Minix, and BSD. Their license, I think, is the BSD license. Is that, or BSD like license? Oh, MIT, that's right. I'm sorry. I think I'm confusing the license with something else I was reading. Must have been FreeBSD.
CFS support. Right?
Yeah. And according to what they've said, they said that their approach, and this is something they kind of took from Plan 9. You remember that old Bell Labs operating system from many years ago?
Oh yeah.
Not the movie. Right.
Mm.
Did you ever see Plan 9 from Outer Space?
I have not.
What's his name? Bela Lugosi was in it, and he died during the filming.
Oh.
And so at the beginning of the film, you see him, and then they had to get a replacement for him.
Whoops.
About mid-film. So the rest of the film, when they show Bela Lugosi, he's got his arm over his face with a cloak, so you can't really, part of his face, so you can't really see because it was a
Really?
different actor. Yeah.
Wow.
All right, let me get back on track. But anyway, they've got a Vi-like editor that they've put into Redox. It's called Sodium, and so.
Why would they use just Vi?
Yeah, well, and they said, so in the menu bar, pick the icon with NA on it, which is, of course, the abbreviation for sodium. Yeah, so that's kind of funny. But so I don't know much about it because it looks to be fairly new. But speaking of Plan 9, I got a little distracted there. But the one of the things about Plan 9 is, or at least this distro is in the inspiration from which they took from Plan 9, was that everything is a URL. You know how in Unix or Linux, everything's a file?
Yeah.
So for this, it's a URL, which is their approach, which is kind of, I mean, it does have kind of file-like tendencies, I'll say, as far as the, the path goes. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this particular project.
Yeah.
So, and the documentation isn't complete yet. I don't know if you guys have gone out there and taken a look at the documentation, but they've got, you go in there and you get kind of interested, and suddenly it gets to a spot where they say, as in the following, and then they've got this big block that says to do. So they're still in the process of hashing out the details of the documentation. But I think this is going to be something that will bear further watching, and I'm sure once it gets to a point where it's workable as far as me or I am concerned, it'll be a distro review. So
All right.
anyway, but I want to talk a little bit about that during our distro segment. Because,
Oh, they have already pre-built VirtualBox and VMware images and QEMU
Oh, have they?
and ISO. Yeah.
I must not have gotten down that far in the
What
documentation.
did I click on to find that? Oh, other downloads.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I hadn't.
Right on the main page.
Okay, thanks for that. I didn't.
I
That's
love when they
interesting.
have the
You can
machine
spin
images
that up
ready.
on the virtual machine.
Yeah, I love when I have a machine image ready for stuff because you download it and throw it on there, and yes, there it
Oh,
goes.
see, no, I didn't know that. That's I didn't look in the other downloads because I'd only found out about this yesterday. So that's why my information about it is a little sparse.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that my babbling afforded you the opportunity to do a little more research. So that's good. So, and I think, one thing I did note, there was somebody had a review out there, and I say this because I'm noticing that Chaos or KOS had a release. Somebody did a review of it, and it was kind of a tepid review. So I don't know what's up with that, but I don't know.
All right. Speaking of Linux, why did I say that? Linux distros. I did my talk on the last 2 weeks ago at Mark
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
about
You did.
and using Kali Linux, and the first.
Oh, I meant to go to that. I'm so sorry I didn't go.
It's all right. It's on YouTube, so
Okay.
check it out.
I gotta admit, the fail open was cool, and I did not know about that. It was a way to make smart routers fail open and start cross-talking data between the ports.
Yeah, it's actually switches.
Switches, I meant.
Yep, and
Well, now, just for those in our audience who might not know what fail open means, I mean,
Right.
I know all three of us do. Could you explain
Yeah.
what that is, Tony?
yeah, so it's when you say fail open, it's a
Fails in
general
open
term,
state, right?
right? And yeah, and it's
Accessible.
used in many terms in,
Mhm.
in security and other things that were like if you have a power outage and you have those electronic doors, you can program them to either fail locked or fail open.
Oh, okay.
Where when the power goes out, are you allowing people to actually exit the building? So you leave it failed open, but then you have a problem where people can come in the building.
Mhm. But that's where the guards come out with the guns.
Yeah.
Right. So in the same idea, a network switch can, if there's a problem with it and it crashes, is the idea to fail open where network communication can still happen. It just is a degraded performance and security problem, or do you fail closed where all communication stops? So in the idea of keeping things working, it fails as open. So the idea is that there's a program called MacOff, and it'll just throw loads of MAC addresses to add a switch through the Ethernet port, and that will overload the MAC table on a switch, which causes it to crash and then fail open.
Oh, okay.
At that point, now every port.
Everybody can leave the building? No.
Everybody can talk to everybody in the building.
Exactly. Well, it's every port is just flooded out. All data, all traffic's ported. It's flooded out every port, which means now a hacker can start sniffing all the
traffic.
All the traffic coming across the switch.
Okay.
So that's
and he live demoed that, which
I
is
did
kind of
that.
cool.
It worked out. It wasn't as good as I thought it would go.
It
I
was
should have built in
novel.
a couple more tests to show how it worked, but
Yeah.
it did show additional traffic coming through, so it did work.
Now-
I did it in the other difference. I did it against my little Linksys router, which has a switch and a router built into it. Where if I did it across like a standard Cisco switch or something, then you would see better.
You have one of those old classic Linksys routers?
Yeah,
You know, I think I still have one. Do you want it? If
sure.
I mean, I'll give it to somebody, whoever wants it.
Yeah. Actually, what I've been doing with my old ones, I have 2 or 3 now, is I use them as old just access points where I turn off.
Yeah, I gotta order some because we're for the talk I'm doing at PingCon. We're doing a couple varieties. We have been loading old Linksys routers and Buffalo Station ones to DDWRT.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's that open source router.
Yep, it's part of the talk we're doing, how you can modify these for that. So
Okay, yeah, and I believe I still have it because I have done some electronic recycling and stuff, but I think I kind of hung on to it because it still worked. It's also got the super duper antennas on it that are about this big.
Oh, all right.
So, you know, those come with it. There's 2 of them.
Cool.
So, yeah, I'll
if Tom
I'll bring
wants
that.
it for his project, then
you can have it when I'm done. I only need it for
Oh, yeah,
demonstration
yeah.
purposes.
All right.
Why don't we do that?
That'll be great.
Yeah, I'll get that. When do you need it by, Tom?
Sooner the better, so we can load it.
Okay.
So next, whatever.
Okay, yeah, I have to go. I'll go home and check to make sure I have it because
Yeah. By the next
All
show.
right.
I don't want to set you up too much.
No, by
here.
the next show is fine.
Yeah, I think I hung on to it on purpose because I knew it had some repurposing. So, okay.
All right. The other thing though is I had right at the beginning I had a fail, a pretty bad fail that I tried to demonstrate hacking an Android phone, and it wouldn't install. So I'm like, well, I can't do that one.
I guess those Androids are more secure than I thought.
Actually, I was trying to use our old the soundboard that we're using right now. I tried to use that phone because it hasn't been updated in like 4 years.
Oh, okay.
Which the only time I get it on the internet or on the network was to do this test.
Yeah.
And it failed. So actually my plan is that I'm going to make up like 4 or 5 mini presentations of different tools that Kelly has. And then every couple months, I'll do like the secondary presentation at Mug
Okay.
and give those.
If you need, if I have some Android phone for use, if you need to try to do something with Android phones, I've got a couple that are sitting. Oh, one is actually doing duty as a Bluetooth thing with music for my speakers. But if you need to use something for some testing or some demonstration, let me know.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. Thanks.
Before we move on from distros, the only other one I want to mention is RoboLinux. They just had a release, and these guys go into considerable detail about the security features of their release. And one thing I wanted to note, you'll remember when we took our fresh looks at Apricity OS, I think one of the programs I'd noted is that it's got that UFW firewall, which is actually stands for uncomplicated firewall. If I didn't mention it at that point, it's simply just a front end for IP tables, but they have that as part of RoboLinux along with that graphical front end.
All right.
So
Yeah, that's why I have UFW on my laptop. Yep.
Yeah. So, all right. I guess that's anything else on the distro front.
Cool. No, I don't have
Okay.
anything else.
Nope, we're good on that.
All right, then I'm going on to
Tech news and views.
news.
News.
News. There's
Views.
some news.
Views and news. Well, who's starting?
I can start. So there is a cool little app that makes cartoons. And this is a interesting article. And the reason we're going to start out with cartoons is it's called Toonz, Toonz software, and it's made to use popular shows such as Futurama. So this is like industry standard software.
Oh,
And they decided to open source it. Been
wow.
around for years, and they think this is the great way for artists to lower the cost of entry into getting into the cartoon world. So I'm hoping we're going to see some better and more cartoons, because there's professional software out there that's like, I mean, this is big software. And the guy that bought it, the guy bought it was a cartoon developer.
Does it run on Linux?
I don't think so right now, but I imagine once it's open source, that's just a
Oh, they'll
compile
port
switch.
it. They'll port it.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll get ported over. I don't
Okay.
think it had Linux. It didn't really say, because it was all about the industry was most of the article. I couldn't find a ton of information on this.
I have a hard time thinking open source and Windows in the same sentence.
Oh, I know. Because you got to remember,
Yeah,
Linux
yeah.
is the cancer, according to Mr. Balmer.
Yeah.
So I thought that was good news to see that there's some open source that's going to give some tools. We're seeing this in video. We're seeing, Leaps and Bounds are going to be doing some code sprints for Caden Live, and that to help bring it more
Yeah.
feature rich. So all these video editing tools, and hey, why not cartoons too?
Nice.
So
That's exciting. I'll have to check that out.
yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. Apparently, the
Yeah.
software is fairly intuitive, and it's very, very popular. Like I said, they had a list of some of the big shows that are using it, so it's a popular package. It's not
Cool.
just some guy's little, I'm going to make this open source project. He took an existing years of code. I think this software's been around since the 90s.
Oh, wow.
So, and he bought it from a company, and then he's open sourcing it. So pretty cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Is his name Mark Shuttleworth? No.
So
Guy buying
yeah.
software. I mean, it must be a rich guy or something.
So the White House is looking for some feedback. And not, yeah, I know.
No.
Specifically relating to us on their open source policies. There is it's sourcecode.cio.gov, and there's an entire piece of information on there. It's a write up on a hill. They're looking for suggestions on how they should write their open source policy. My opinion is make it all open source. If my tax dollars paid for it, I think I should have a copy of the source code, and I think the source code should be available. That's my thoughts on it. I will be sharing them with the White House. But if you have some thoughts and you'd like to share
And
as well.
and when you sign it, put in married to.
And Mary too. Yeah. You can also find us on, if
I
you
think it's a
just
good
Google
idea.
GitHub White House, you can submit it right directly. They're taking the submissions actually directly on their GitHub for updates and information. So I think it's right in the GitHub forum. So you can talk about how the government wants to do that. I think it's a great idea. I'm glad that they're talking about it, and makes me happy.
All right.
Unlike the other government stuff that doesn't make us happy when they go, let's not go all in on this encryption.
Right.
Let's just talk about we should have backdoors into everything you guys do. And we should have an open source copy of everything you guys do.
Right.
Next.
Yeah.
We could go, it's a whole other rant, the whole Apple.
Right. Yeah. I don't want to.
Yeah.
Take that
Or actually, I do have one of my news items. I had several on that, but one of them concerns Lindsey Graham, who's a U.S. senator from South Carolina.
Introducing an anti-encryption bill.
I don't know. Are you sure? When did he do that?
Or maybe I'm wrong. Or I'm sorry, Feinstein was the one doing that.
Yes.
Say got an anti-encryption bill.
I was going
My
to
bad.
say, because he has flipped and not out. The DOJ loses Lindsey. Well, and again, this is from districtsentinel.com. DOJ loses Lindsey Graham in encryption fight. He has flipped from, last December, he had called on Silicon Valley to stop selling encrypted devices, expressed serious concern on Wednesday about the precedent the Department of Justice would set if it successfully compels Apple to break iPhone security features. So he went from wanting to take encryption off to the precedent, because what happened is some people from the Intel or from the security industry talked to him about the ramifications of that position. And so once he had a chance to evaluate that information, as well as other probably anecdotal things he received, he just decided that it's more important not to do that.
And I feel how this conversation went. We can unencrypt your phone too. Well, then I support this encryption thing. You mean it would apply to me?
You know what's really interesting is that I had heard the same news or saw the same like video clip, but it wasn't specifically because I was looking for him or that. It was because I was watching a video of John Oliver.
Yes.
And he did a really good breakdown of the encryption.
He did, and he had
It's
Lindsey
top
Graham on there.
notch.
I saw that,
Yeah.
but the problem is this just came out, and I think the portion of that video that had Lindsey Graham in it was the previous Lindsey Graham.
No, he shows both. He showed from 2 years ago,
okay.
and then he showed from just I
The
don't know, it was 2
announcement.
weeks ago or whatever it was.
Where he
So,
changed his mind.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really good. I'll include that.
Oh yeah, please do, because I saw an episode, or not an episode, but a snippet from his show where he was just showing various clips and things, and I think it was Lindsey Graham from December. So I just didn't see that newer one.
You know, it's like a 20-minute video, but it goes through a lot of topics.
And it
related to
covers.
encryption. It's
It
really
does a good job of covering it too. And
Yeah.
it's good for people who don't have
Mhm.
a good depth of understanding security. You'll still understand the video.
Yeah.
Right.
So we continue to follow this this very important issue, and I think somebody where did I see it? There's some Apple engineers that they're
Threaten to leave if they have to produce. If they had to undo the security they created, they have
Mhm.
threatened to leave. So
Really?
there's all kinds of issues. So that, they have the compelled speech, and that's the argument they're winning so far. Is
Mhm.
software has been established. Software is free speech, so they cannot compel them to say something they don't want to say. That's the compelled speech
Mhm.
argument. I think it's called the All Writs Act that protects them from that. So the next one is whether or not the government can demand their source code.
I think that's a different act. The All Writs is something different. If I
Is
remember
it?
right?
Yeah, I get them all
But-
mixed up. I'm not a legal
Right.
scholar.
Yeah,
I
that's
just-
fine.
But
I
you
don't
sounded
remember.
convincing.
I
though.
sounded.
Yeah.
I said it with confidence.
Yeah.
But I do know that the free speech part is right. They are basically winning on the fact that you cannot compel someone to say something they do not want to say.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's the part that Apple's winning on.
Mhm.
Then they said, well, let us have the source code and we'll say it for you. And of course, Apple's not ready to do that either. And I'm not sure that there's any case precedence because, no one's ever been asked for their source code for something because it hasn't been around that long for people to ask for. So this is a trickier case precedence.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
agree.
because they would just take things apart in previous, we want to know how this car works. Well, the government wouldn't ask GM. They would just go take the car apart.
Right.
they cut the lock open and go, this is how the lock
Mhm.
works. So it's a little bit different. There's not really a real world equivalent. So now we're back into the uncharted territories that will set some heavy legal precedents for all this.
One thing too, extremetech.com had an interesting article on Friday along those lines about the engineers possibly quitting. But what was really compelling for me was the graphic they included, because they showed iOS and Android. They had a couple pie charts. The one on the left was iOS, and the text that went with it said that nearly all iPhones are encrypted, but few Android phones are. About 2% of Android phones run the latest software codenamed Marshmallow, which I think don't our Nexus
Yes.
devices have Marshmallow on them?
Yeah, I'm still wrong.
Which requires higher end devices to be encrypted. Well, Google has also encrypted its Nexus devices since version 5.0. But here's the thing, they've got like 95. About 95% of iOS phones are encrypted. Showing the Android version, we're talking that 2%
Yeah, very small amount.
are encrypted. So it's quite compelling.
Yeah.
Moving on to something we talked about a little bit earlier
Mhm.
is I like the way this line read. It said many conventional scientific instruments are designed to be incompatible to possible extensions that are not co-developed by the user community, leading in practical designs. And what we're talking about is scientific instruments and the need for open source hardware. And there's some big push for this. It's Good article, and it's basically, you can search for this. There's a group of scientists going, you know what, we're sick of this proprietariness that comes, and the two devices don't hook up well to each other. So they're actually starting to 3D print and open source and share between scientists their own innovation on the instruments they use. So not only are they sharing and white papering information on the projects you're working on, but they're going a step further and sharing the information between each other on the information on how they built their instruments. Because that's a big, they had some problems with some of these growth labs and some of the things that they're working on not being, compatible. You've got to buy from this one vendor makes this type of microscope, and there's no way to hook up this device to it. So they're actually 3D printing and then open sourcing the design for that, modifications to the devices. And they said, well, why don't we look at how we can open source this entire process, so we can have open sources, so we can buy these standardized pieces and then integrate them and then share the information of better ways and better measurement tools. So I think that's pretty cool. And maybe we'll have an open source MRI machine at some point with big magnets.
I can see that. I can see issues with it though. I mean, I understand open sourcing, but you're talking about, it wouldn't be the point of like the hospital building it themselves. You're talking about that there would be a vendor that they go to, that they still buy it from a vendor, but there's quicker updates and there's better fixes.
If it was open source, and this is interesting, we're seeing this huge with Facebook right now, oddly enough, in some of the other companies, because even I think I mentioned last show, Goldman Sachs jumped on this. It's the open source hardware formats, and it's basically how they're doing their data centers, which was the big secret of how we built our data center. That way our data center could be bigger than yours or better or transfer. And we're seeing more and more of these companies open source data center design. You're not talking about not the software that runs the data centers. That's become a lot of open source, but the design and architecture. Google has opened up how they build their data centers. Facebook, because Facebook doesn't care about the data center, they open it up to the world because they want to see the world's input and improvements upon it, because they want a faster data center to get our information faster, and so you can like things faster.
Not like things faster.
Yes, and scientists in medical have the same issue. They really want to service. If they want to examine something, they want to be able to have more flexibility, and it's designed by engineers, not necessarily designed by a biochemist who goes, I really have this cool growth thing I'm doing. It doesn't fit in your microscope. And you guys didn't think about that making it because you made it generic and you don't have an open source design. So the concept is to create more of an open source repository for the design of these being influenced by the people using the tools. So it's kind of where an open source concept of the community of people influencing the design people in a more direct fashion, and being able to, because of the 3D printers and all that, we can start 3D printing the parts, open sourcing the software that runs them to make the data easier and more accessible to them. So it's a different concept on there, but I like it,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. One of the news I wanted to mention too, while we're talking about it, there's in the state legislature in New York, they have introduced legislation or a bill to provide tax assistance to open source contributors.
Yeah, I see.
Did you see that?
Yes.
I thought that was great, because they're saying that promoting innovation is the primary reason for the bill, according to excuse me, according to those folks in the Senator Squadron. It reminds me of my old Air Force stuff. He recognizes the impact of open source software despite not being a coder himself. See, that's so key. Where you might not do it yourself, but you think big and you can understand the importance of it. He says, I respect the Tech Triangle in Williamsburg. It's actually down near the one of the bridges down there, Williamsburg Bridge in Brooklyn, as well as in Lower Manhattan, where technology sector has a growing presence. Supporting that kind of innovation is key. He said, he goes on to say that he's also seen the cost-saving impacts that open source can have for everyday users and businesses. Incentivizing open source software can attract more open source developers, create in-state jobs, and add to the state's burgeoning technology sector. Personally, I won't be coding. He ends it. But when you're talking about tax breaks, there's this philosophy, which I don't agree with, that if you give tax breaks to businesses, they're going to create jobs. But when it really comes right down to it, the only thing that creates jobs is consumer demand. Yeah. And so that's why this seems to me to be a better approach when you're talking about tax breaks, because those folks, there are people that are already coding, doing it for nothing. For very little. And so I think that if they're incentivized because they're getting some kind of breaks, I think that just starts to build a kind of a groundswell of further groundswell of support for this. So I just that article caught my eye.
Yeah, no, that's
Caught
really
both
good,
of them
though.
actually.
Got both the eyes. No, we're seeing more of that. I love the whole push for some of the open source development. I'm completely against any type of tax breaks. I don't think the government should try to control the influence. But and a kind of related note, though, there's been a new show on Netflix called American Genius. There's another one called The Men Who Built America.
Oh, yeah?
And so much intellectual property and lawyers were used to leverage and damage emerging products. Even though there's consumer demand for these projects, it held
Did you say
off.
that in the past tense?
Yeah, it's as if it's still not happening. This is where I think the world's changing and things open sourcing it and actually sharing between there to help fulfill the consumer demand. Everybody wins. It's a better situation. The fight between RCA and Farnsworth over the TV, great episode on there about it. But it's all how the two technologies and the fact that the patents held everything up in court for years to slowly roll out. TV would have rolled out so much faster. Electronics would develop faster, but it was all this big infighting amongst them.
This really stunted development. Oh, that's what happened with BSD and AT&T, and why BSD is kind of off, a smaller.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
There's some advice they had in there. So
I aim to change that. I just want you to know. Speaking of that kind of thing, although it's kind of a tough segue, I did see, and I think we briefly touched on this before we started recording, Microsoft and their Edge browser, which is just, in my opinion, it's just kind of a rehashed Internet Explorer.
Yes.
One of their engineers tweeted that, excuse me, they are working on a porting tool to run Chrome extensions in Edge. They're not finished yet. And not all APIs are supported, but that's what he tweeted out. So they're trying to, who's going to use Edge? It's, right. With the bad history that Microsoft has had with their browser, where they had 90% of the market, then they kind of sat on it and didn't realize that you got to keep moving, because if you don't move, you're falling behind.
Not to be,
and that's what happened.
Not to be pro Microsoft, but from what I hear about Edge, they rebuilt it from the ground up. And they actually built it in the same design construct that they used for Chrome when they were designing Chrome, is that every single tab is sandboxed out and separate processes. And,
I
things
saw
like
that when I went into Task Manager once to look. There was I had like 12, 15 different Chrome processes.
Which is it's a good thing, because then when you're on one site, then it's not accessing data that you're on from another site.
Yeah, but here's and Tony, I understand what you're saying, but the problem is that they didn't think of it, and their browser was just a piece of crap, pardon my language, for years, and they could have done that, but they didn't.
Oh, I agree.
But the other thing I wanted to mention too, and again, I don't mean to digress into the Windows world, but because I spend my day in Windows, and I did see this. Somebody was talking about there's some kind of a update that comes out, and by the way, there's that force feeding of Windows 10 that I'm refusing. I've noticed now that I'm not automatically prompted to update my Windows 7. I have to go in and I have to think about it and check my updates. Well, when you get that list of updates, there's usually a reference to a KB article. And what I do is I go down, I click each one. So I end up with maybe 12 articles, and I go through and I cross-reference, okay, what's this about? What's this about? Well, as it turns out, apparently what Microsoft did recently, and one of the quote unquote security updates, is they put a non-security update in there, which apparently
it changes the prompt for Windows 10 and wants you to auto upgrade.
Well, not that, but I think it's setting up their browser to have some kind of ad thing in it.
Yeah. What it does, it's an advertisement for Windows 10.
Yep.
So the Internet Explorer will now show a bar at the top saying, "Hey, to be more secure, you need to update to Windows 10."
I haven't installed it.
Don't.
I've not installed that update.
You won't miss it.
Well, see, and the problem is now you have to weigh the risks of that security update. What was the security update for? And are you going to be vulnerable opposed to not having that update?
Yeah.
Now, if it all it does is add that bar to Internet Explorer, and you never use Internet Explorer, then why not install it?
Well, I do a little bit, but not much.
But
I
it's crazy to see them forcing it like this. I mean, that's pretty
exactly
sneaky.
Yeah, it's pretty sneaky, and
it just goes to show they haven't really changed. They're being forced to change. That's all. They're not changing by leading. They're changing because they're being dragged into having to change. It's change or die.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's it.
Well, they threw SQL on Linux. They're porting it over, but I don't.
Oh, speaking of SQL, actually, I'm going to shift back to MySQL or MariaDB.
Yeah.
I just requested from the state of Michigan the entire 8 million names on the qualified voter list, because I am going to, this is going to be a great exercise, but it's also going to help some friends of mine who are involved in the recall. I'm going to get that file and say, oh my God, what have I done? No, I'm going to then try to parse it out. And I'm investigating some awk statements or what makes the most sense as far as going in there, because it's a fixed width file, ASCII file.
Yeah.
So I can go in and just say, hey, I only want these groups, because otherwise I would have had to pay $23 for each slice that I wanted. And I said, well, just give me the whole state.
Yeah.
And it'll be a good learning experience for me. But the plan then is for me to upload that to a table. In either
perform queries
MySQL or
against it.
MariaDB, depending on what I can get my hands on. Yeah, and then I'm going to put together a PHP page that will allow me to just type in a couple of little key pieces of information and then bring up lists of people, list the people that have signed a petition.
Nice. So you can say like everybody in this city or everybody in this county.
No, we're doing it. It's basically for signature validation, because one of the
So
key.
you can search by name.
Yeah, because yes. Because one of the key pieces, when you have a shorter, what the legislature did is they shortened the amount of time it takes to recall somebody. It's like 60 days. The signatures are only good for. So when you are collecting signatures, there's a certain percentage of those signatures are bad. People might not be at the address, and when they're validated by the validating authority, they'll say, "Oh, they're not there. That's not a valid signature." So if you know ahead of time going into it that, hey, on this list of, maybe there's 12 signatures on this page, 10 of them are good, or 4 of them are good, that helps you understand where you are relative
Right.
to the goal. So
You've had experience in doing this in the past.
Yeah,
haven't
I've
you?
done-
I remember you talking about
I did
in
it
the past.
when we were trying to recall the Detroit mayor, which
Mhm.
we were going to fall short, actually, just because we were, but then he ended up, he had too many things happening to him, so he
Right.
had to resign. But yeah, so but this thing is much broader. So
All right.
Yeah, and there's a really good tool. So if you go to the MySQL and you
Mhm.
can set up a local version on your computer of the MySQL database, their entire development tool is really cool for building queries and everything. It's a whole suite of software that you can load. It's both a Windows and a Linux version. So
mhm.
I can't remember the name of it, but it's downloadable right from their website.
You're getting just outside the range of the mic.
Oh.
So yeah, you could.
Oh.
There you go.
Yeah, so it's a whole tool
Mhm.
set that you can download that loads on your computer with an entire development, and it lets you, has a query building system, and you can run a local copy of the database. It even has some, I believe it has some importing tools, so you can import there. I use it to help me build some of the database views and some of the tables, because it was easy to edit and really clean. I liked it better than the PHP MyAdmin interface. So
All right.
Yeah, no, there are some limitations with it. And what I found out is that if you go into that configuration file and change it, you can increase the size of the imports, because it was very small. And I was able to do that. But my plan here is, if this whole effort continues to move forward, I'll have little updates and things. Hey, here's how far I
that's
got
pretty
with
cool.
it, and that type of thing. So, but I think MariaDB or MySQL can handle 8 million records. I did.
Oh, yeah.
I did search on
Yeah.
that.
that's
Right.
not a problem. I forget what the limit is, but I know it's a lot higher than 8 million.
Yeah.
My last little piece of news is, so I didn't directly experience this because I always turn this off in Unity, but everyone hated this feature with Unity. The lenses will search the internet. So when you're looking for a calculator, it shows up like a TI-85 calculator for sale, besides giving you results for LibreOffice Calc and the actual calculator app.
Isn't the screen actually split out where
Yeah.
at the top will be your actual installed apps, and then below will be internet sources?
Yes, and that was Mark Shuttleworth's excuse of, you can separate where it's coming from. Like it's not like you're going to accidentally buy a calculator trying to pull up the calculator app. And he's right. It's internet search results down there. But I never thought this was a good idea. I don't really want my computer going out to the internet to search for things, because I don't use Unity as my searching for product purchases. Well, they also have a Wikipedia integration, and it's not exactly Ubuntu's fault, other than the fact that they put it in there. But if you type for gedit, the default text editor, you will get genitals as a search result in Wikipedia, and people are not happy
Wait, you
about
will
this.
get, when you say you will get them, You're
You
assuming
get lots of photos.
you get you don't already have them.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Good point. Good point.
So that might be helpful for people who don't have them.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
It'll send you off on an entirely. Granted, we know it's an internet
Yeah.
results search because who knew there's that on your computer? But
right.
yeah, so that's an unfortunate if you have left the Unity on, and of course the person complaining said, "Hey, my 8-year-old kid was using the computer, and look what he sees." And so of course this is a problem because he just wanted to open up a text editor to edit his Minecraft files, and
Yeah,
And he's
that's pretty
presented-
bad.
presented with lots of other stuff. So this is really finally coming to fruition, like why you shouldn't do this. This is just don't integrate that. I mean, we hate Microsoft for doing it on Windows 10 with everything being a search result. And of course they use Bing so it doesn't find anything, but come on, that's a bad idea.
Mhm.
Jeez.
You know what Bing stands for, right?
No,
but it's
but
not Google.
It's not Google.
Is that true?
Anyways.
Is that true? Is that a joke?
I think it's as true as can be.
But it's not.
But it's
Google?
not Google.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's why we
That's
have
hilarious.
5% of the search market.
Oh, I've
anyways.
done a Bing search, and it just Google just seems smarter to me. That's all. Not that I'm a Google fangirl,
Boy,
but
there wasn't much more damning than the Bing versus Google. And Microsoft promoted, they had a website where you could type in, you had to pick which was the winner, Bing or Google. And you type in a search query and it would split the screen. It wouldn't tell you which the results were from. You know, it would mask it and show you the results. And you would pick whichever the better results were.
my guess, I'm sure I could tell which was Google and which was Bing.
Yeah, because the right answers are on the Google one every time.
Exactly.
Bing for the longest
Yeah.
time, when you Googled my company name, would give you the results of a company in Alabama that had this is how long ago it was in the earlier days. And it basically looks like a GeoCities site. I'm talking like a horribly bad page that wasn't really about computer repair.
Mhm.
And it was really just this weird page this guy had that I never was clear on what he did.
I remember GeoCities.
Yeah, it looked like a
Way back in the
GeoCities site.
day.
It was some crazy URL. I'm like, why does only thing it said in it is he picked up computers. It was part of a blog post. I'm like, how can you type in part of my company name and find that as a result higher than my own company name?
Wow.
But Google never did that. Google didn't even have it like on the third page of results for this guy. I couldn't tell what keywords, but Bing kept putting it at the top. And I kept flagging and I going, why is there's no relevance to what
He has a
words I typed
relative
in.
that works for Microsoft.
Yeah. Those are the kind of problems I've always seen with Bing. It's
Yeah.
just not the most relevant results. So
Mhm.
anyways, that's what I got for the news.
All right.
Who's next?
Well, Tony, as soon as you're done, I'll have KD corner.
All right. Yeah. So I found a few things. The first one is the article's called "Here's a Look Inside Dell Strategy for Linux PCs," and specifically, it's talking about the Linux laptop, and I guess they're calling it, or it's their Sputnik. Yeah, their Sputnik project.
Yeah.
And
It's like a 1950s satellite, and it's not
Right.
even American. It
Yeah,
was
so
a
they're
Russian.
Russian?
No offense to Russia, but
the project is about 4 years old. They first, it was 2012 when they first announced it. And the current version is based off the XPS 13, which is the Windows 10 version.
which
but
I used to have.
the Sputnik, oh yeah,
Remember that little
the XPS
yeah.
laptop, yeah.
Yeah.
But the Sputnik version is, they had some issues, and it wasn't until this month, or was it last month? February 18th. So it was last month, is when they finally got some of the Linux drivers set up and working on it. I guess in specific, it's the Skylake chipset is working in Ubuntu.
The part I wasn't clear about is, are they just going to leave binary blobs on there, or are they going to give us open source drivers for some of the features that are with the Skylake chipset? I didn't get a clarification, I don't think, when I looked into that.
Yeah, I didn't see that either way on this article either. So
Because they're supposed to have USB 3.0 support in there too, but that comes back to the same question. Did they write drivers and closed source them, or did they give us an open source look at the USB 3 that runs Skylake? And I think, did they, some of the Dell XPS, did they come with the Thunderbolt as well?
I don't see it. I don't know. I don't think the XPS has a Thunderbolt.
because it'd be nice to have some of that open source as well. So it's really, you have fast transfers on both of them.
Oh, you know what? Right. It was, and it does say it has the Skylake chipset and the Thunderbolt 3 interconnect.
Yeah, and a USB 3 on there. And that's been kind of a hang up in some of the Linux, is I don't believe that there's the best support for it. But I mean, if the developers themselves, the people making the hardware, actually would give us more information really in depth, would be pretty awesome. So we can see some better drivers. And the specs are really nice in those Dell XPS. I mean, some of them are i7 and they have greater than 1080. I mean, they're like 2K and 4K screens, I believe, on some of them.
Right. It's definitely the top end of their laptops for commercial home user laptops. And so it's not going to be a cheap laptop with it running Linux.
No, but it's a premium for, you got a developer who really wants a premium device. Me and Tony both have the HP EliteBooks. I don't know if it's just by coincidence or HP thought this out, but the EliteBooks have a history of supporting Linux really well. And it's just the devices they chose happen to have great Linux support. So out of the box, you can just load them up and away you go. No real detail compiling or custom drivers or firmware updates. It just load and run.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I was reading this article further down. It says that where people are looking at buying one of these laptops because of not having to want to deal with drivers. And it specifically says like Wi-Fi drivers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the last time I had to install something for a Wi-Fi driver in a modern Linux distro was 4 years ago for Gen 2. And that's where it compiles. So all I have to do is say the specific one. And if you're doing Gen 2, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So any of my Ubuntu Mint laptops, they've all just the Wi-Fi works. I haven't had a problem over 5 years.
Speaking of Wi-Fi and chip companies, well, I don't know if you're talking about chip companies, but I'm throwing that in as my segue. There's a rumor out that Broadcom is getting out of the Wi-Fi area.
Ooh. That's exciting. I should have beer on just for that.
I think it was on Digitimes a couple of days ago.
Well, one of the things, part of the reason they're talking about the Wi-Fi is a more specific problem. The Wi-Fi drivers often work, but don't work for the fastest speeds. So if they do connect, you do have internet. And like the Dell XPS series are going to be.
But you're like an AOL user.
You're like an AOL user. All I got is the 2.4. That was a problem I had with one of my other laptops. Is it only worked? It wouldn't detect anything in the higher speed Wi-Fi. It locked in at the lower ranges only. Yeah. And it was a driver issue with they simply didn't have a driver that could support that function in there. So it did work. I did have internet. I did not have the fastest speed because of it. So that was kind of an issue. So and I understand why they're complaining. The Dell XPSs are not coming with RJ45s on them. So you got to get a USB adapter, and we're seeing more and more in these offices where they're putting in, one of the new offices we're building out, they're putting in all brand new super high speed and Wi-Fi all throughout the building because the majority of developers have laptops that come and go. So they're kind of expecting the high speed because they don't plug in. Yeah. They bring their laptops. They expect high rates of data transfer. So
what is the cost? You're still talking about the XPS 13, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the cost of that?
About 1,500 or so. I think
I want to say it was somewhere around there, but I didn't.
All right, let me just tell you something. Let me just tell you something. See, there's like a Linux tax on there because I went into Google and just typed XPS 13 in Dell, and you know that if you want Windows 10 on them, you can get them for as low as $799 or $800.
Well, it depends on the specs. The ones that are for their Sputnik project, I think all of them are i7 and above. Like they don't have a cheap model of them.
Right.
There's 8 gigs of RAM.
Yeah,
$1,400.
Because these are, they just don't have a low end model. So it's based on the same XPS 13 dimensions.
All right, thanks for clearing that up.
But but they're putting in like an i7 and a 4K screen in them, which has an insane DPI. I mean, they said the DPI is higher than the MacBook Retinas and stuff. So wow. Yeah, I forget how many pixels per inch, but you talk about a 4K screen on an 11-inch with no bezel.
Yeah, that makes me want to go out and buy one.
I tell you what, that's the new screens. That's the only thing I don't like about my HP EliteBook is it's a few years old and it doesn't have a nice IPS display. Those IPS displays, you didn't know how good they were till you look at it and you're like, my HP looks like crap now. And it's not crappy. It's a nice picture.
Sure. All right.
It came out a few weeks ago. There was the talk about the Ubuntu tablet. I think you talked about it in the last one. There's another article on that. I was just glancing at it, and that's when I realized that you had already talked about it.
Well, it's a more development with Ubuntu phone, and I think my comment on it was they're developing some more ways to run Android essentially virtually inside of it. I think that's going to be the big push when we see for an Ubuntu phone. Was we're used to the Android apps; they have a wonderful app market, but if I can run Android sandboxed inside of now I get the best of both worlds. I got a full Linux distribution on my phone or tablet that could be portable, expandable, and I can run my Android apps in a sandbox version. So because that's what it always comes down to when the apps. Microsoft released their phone and nobody got it because there's no apps. They were actually paying the developers to try and develop apps for it, and they couldn't get them to, even being paid. So
one of the criticisms I heard about the Ubuntu tablet and the whole one interface across all devices, and
you couldn't tell what you were using.
No, the criticism is that you don't want a small screen app running on your 17-inch or 20-inch monitor.
Thank you very much.
And the other way around, you don't want to have a 20-inch app running on your 5-inch monitor or phone. But
but at least you can kind of push it. You can expand it so that it looks bigger on your phone versus having those stupid websites that I got a 24-inch monitor, and I've got a website that's been optimized for a tablet, and I've got all the screen real estate with.
Well, my thought is, why don't they make it so that when you plug into the dock, it sees that it's on a dock and then launches the desktop app of it.
And I was thinking about that because the
web app.
Yeah, because the concept is there. I mean, we design in WordPress and we use responsive design, and we look at the size and width of the device that it's on and change dynamically like the way the menus are. Well, we're not going to use a small widescreen menu on a phone, so we drop the menu down to like the hamburger menu, so you can touch it with your thumb and drop down and see the different options for the website. The same concept could work in apps if you had a scalable framework. Say, here's how you design it when it's on this wide, this many pixels wide on a like you said, docked into a 17-inch, 20-inch monitor. It looks normal with your standard file menus, and here's how you do it when you size down so it's actually usable and not unusable on a small device. So maybe I think we're going to see that. We'll see some convergence, and that'll be pretty cool too.
Yeah, and the second criticism I heard is that, well, how am I going to use my phone if I'm using it as a desktop? And if you have a widescreen monitor, which is standard today, almost everybody has a widescreen monitor, is why don't you have a little slice on the side of a picture of what your phone would be, and you can still go click over and interact with it as it's your phone, and then you still have headphones, you still have a Bluetooth, and you can still make calls on that while you're going surfing the web.
So because I have, and so is Mary, we both have Google Fi, and I don't use my phone at work anymore. And because the way Google Fi integrates the phone is so genius.
Your computer rings when
my computer rings.
I turn that off. I found out how to turn it off because
everything rings.
My
at once
computer
in your house.
upstairs rings. My computer my other computer rings. My tablet rings, and then my phone rings. And I'm thinking, it's horrible.
Is an issue. Part of the way I solve it so there's not as many ringing things is I do turn my phone to mute when it's at work, because I don't need it. So my phone sits there on the dock at work, but I do not need it at work because I answer all my calls in my office via that. I dial out. It becomes so convenient. Even with my laptop, if I'm sitting on the couch, I was typing away, and it pops up, and I answer the phone. It's like my phone's in the other room somewhere, but it's really nice like that. So I don't think it's too big of a jump. It's just not something people are used to. All you need, like you said, is a little slice. I have the little dialer that comes up, and I can answer the calls, and I can send text messages, and then I go to the websites for everything else, messaging and that.
Right. And that's actually the opposite of the solution. What this is trying to do is why have two different devices when you can have one device and you just carry a dock with you, or say like you have your laptop here, and instead of having a touchpad, your phone just clicks in right there. Your phone becomes the touchpad. Yeah. And then everything is displayed up on a large screen in front of you.
That's a cool concept.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right.
Yeah. Anyways.
So you have anything else, Tony?
I did have one more thing. The annual Pwn to Own was recently.
Yes. Did you win?
I did not.
Edge did not either. Edge and Explorer didn't win either.
Right. So, but it does say that Chrome and Safari was hacked in the first day.
Yeah.
Chrome was hacked in the first day?
Yeah.
Wow. Did they indicate through what mechanism?
It does, but I didn't get into the specifics.
Okay, that's
so
all right.
You can get into it. But it does say that
So who lasted the longest? If you tell me Edge, I'm just gonna.
I don't see, but it says running on Windows and Flash was the Microsoft Edge. What else here? I didn't see. There was the first hack. The guy that got the most of them was a. Where'd it go? I don't know.
It looks like that Chrome fared the best out of them. 2 attempts were made to hack Google Chrome's browser. 1 failed, and 1 was deemed partial success. Successfully exploited vulnerability in Chrome had already been independently reported to Google, so it was given full points.
Okay.
So it was not given full points. I'm sorry.
It was not because okay.
Edge and Safari, meanwhile, didn't survive any attacks. 2 attempts were made to hack Microsoft's browser, and 3 attempts were made to hack Apple's browser. All attempts were successful.
2 attempts were made, but 3 were successful.
Yeah,
that's how bad.
Yeah, you're right.
That's how bad it was.
I tell you what, my comment on Edge, we deal with it on a daily basis. You know, people bringing computers in. It is so amazing how the hackers have been able to get it stuck on those stupid screens that say "call us," and you can't get it to close. It constantly pops up too. The solution is you got to go behind the scenes. And I forget, I think it's a PowerShell command or something. One of my guys has it scripted now to basically reset Edge, because the hackers can change the page and lock Edge into keep coming up and tell you have potential threats on your computer. Please call us. It's one of those things. You can't make it go away.
Is that one of those scripts that you put in with
yeah.
Screen Connect? So
Yeah,
you
it's
don't
going
have
to
to
be.
remote on it, just you say Screen Connect, run that script.
We're going to have a script on there for that. We also have a script to a PowerShell script that gets rid of the Windows 7 thing, the Windows 7 10 annoyance.
Yeah, the GWX
Yeah.
script. GWX,
It's a GWX
that's
script,
awesome.
so it's pretty cool.
All right.
Hey, one thing, did you, Tony, I know you do your security bit. Did you happen to see that situation regarding some major sites were hit with some security malware? Or
That's
excuse
very
me.
vague.
Yeah.
That's very daily.
So no, yeah.
Yeah, it is vague, isn't it? Oh my God. All right, let me do that again. Top websites hit with malware ads. Apparently there was some, and I first saw this on phosphorus.com, not to be confused with phosphorus.com, but this was phosphorus as an F. But anyway, apparently there were some pretty major sites such as BBC, MSN, AOL. Anybody who visited those sites, apparently if they clicked on an ad that was infected, it then took them to another website that attempted to infect them with crypto wall ransomware or a Trojan that gives the attackers control over the infected computer.
Jeez.
Yeah, so
you know what probably is those sites all use the same backend framework or vendor to run their advertisements. So if a hacker gets in one of those vendors and starts displaying it, then you NFL.com, my Xfinity.com.
Yeah.
See, this is the problem with using third-party advertising like that, where you can't personally vet every ad coming through. Number one, it'd be a big thing to do. It'd be hard to do it, but the problem is then your users or your visitors are potentially vulnerable to malware because of it, because of your website.
Yeah, and there were 4 ad networks that were affected: Rubicon, the RubiconProject.com, AOL, AppNexus, and then Google Syndication. There are 2 rogue domains apparently that were behind all of this. One was called trackmytraffic.biz and then talk915.pw. But yeah, I mean, we're talking major sites like not Wall Street. That isn't a whole infection of another kind. Newsweek.com and all that. So.
And what was interesting is what these guys are doing for the malware is they're using OS fingerprinting on the back end, so they don't serve ads to people running Linux, because there's 2 problems with people running Linux. They're usually security researchers who would have noticed, and we're immune to the problem.
yeah, that's true. So, all right. Anyway, I wanted to mention that because I had just seen this, and I know that you're interested in security. So
that's pretty interesting. That's actually the biggest reason to run an ad blocker or an anti-script kind of ad thing.
And speaking of ad block, did you know those messages that come up that says please disable ad block?
Yes.
Ad block added a feature that disables the thing that says disable ad block.
It's an ad blocker.
It's an ad blocker.
There has to be a different way to monetize the web.
Yes.
That gives there's a reason why people block ads. And you can, I mean, just think about your customer and try to figure out a way to relate to them in a way that they'll respond and say, hey, this is interesting info.
Well, Google's one company in a position to do something about it, and they are. So you can subscribe, and basically what you do is you give Google, let's say, $10 to this. And what Google is doing is replacing all the ads, and they replace them with cat pictures, if I'm not mistaken, to make it fun. They replace all the ads. Now, the website owner still gets money. You're contributing to Google. You're saying, here's $5. And as I go to websites, give each one of these websites some small portion, because they only get like half a cent or less when you go to the web page. So by doing that, you are now preloading Google with the money, and then Google through their ad system is distributing the ads. But instead of you seeing the ad, so if they're using a Google ad, you won't get an ad, you'll get cat pictures or something where the ad normally is. So they just fill it in.
Grumpy cat.
Grumpy cat.
Although, in this case, that doesn't help in this case, because that only works for Google Ads.
Oh,
That
Tony,
only
you're
works for
such
Google
a
Ads.
party pooper.
But I think if there was a company that could get into doing that, where users could say, hey, but they would also have to have a massive market share of the internet advertising market in order to make that viable.
Well, and you would have to subscribe to all of those network ads, or the
And that
ad
would be
networks.
exactly.
And so right here, what we're talking about is 5 different networks right there. So even if you pay $10 per month, that's $50 right there.
That's why you need an intermediary company, one company to broker for all the other ad companies.
You're right.
I mean, it's a concept that can
It
work.
sounds like a startup.
It really does. I put a lot of thought into this, and me and some friends have hashed it out. We think it's a great idea. We don't have enough industry pull. That's like the bottom line is, you need someone who can go there and talk to the industry leaders and say, let's all buy in on this. And it makes everybody win.
Okay.
So my thought was this, or to be able to keep yourself safe from those things, there's 2 different plugins that I've heard about that have been really good. And one that I use.
Just the plug in the wall, just don't plug it. Or the network plug-in.
Right. No script typically is one that works really good, but the problem is then you start blocking things,
break everything.
And almost most websites today use some sort of scripting.
And that was that was a problem I had with it, is because I would go in, then I'd have to go through a list and say, okay, I got to try this, see if that makes this thing work that I want to see.
So there's a one that's called uBlock Origin. And what that does is it blocks websites that aren't from the specific website that you're going to, or it has certain logic to it that blocks. Maybe it does one hop out, but not like to a third party or to so many out.
Okay.
And then the other one that I use, so I don't use uBlock Origin, but I do use Privacy Badger. And what it does is it uses a known list of what's good and bad. For both privacy reasons and for advertising, and it blocks certain elements of the website for that kind of thing.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. That was a pretty newsy segment. We'll have to probably get this wrapped up pretty quick. I just got 2 KDE corner things. One of which is KDE has been selected as a mentoring organization for the Google Summer of Code.
Oh, all right.
Which is kind of cool. Yeah, so they've got some information out there. Apparently, they've got a guide that they want students to read before they start doing, before they start creating their proposals, and so that's kind of exciting. I'm looking forward to fixing perhaps some of the little things I noticed. Maybe somebody will take that on as a project.
Yeah.
The other thing too is that anybody who uses Kate and also uses or codes in Perl, if I'm saying that correctly, and uses Kate to do so, the Perl plugin was just updated to 1.8, so that came out a few days ago, and that might be something.
Perl hurts my eyes.
I'm not
good at it.
Yeah, Perl I think Perl and PHP are 2 kind of different things. Or is Perl Perl's more of a programming language, and PHP is more of a server-side scripting language, right?
Yeah, and Perl is just the way the expressions are written, and it's very
kind of
tedious.
complex, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's very powerful. It's been around.
Okay,
forever.
that's probably why. Okay. Anyway, and then by the way, too, KDE had a sprint at CERN, and there was a recent blog posting about all the stuff that they got done. And at CERN, of course, is that large collider, whatever, there in Europe. So that's kind of cool. And I think they had so much fun, they're gonna probably go back and do it again. So those are my few little blurbs from this episode's KDE Corner. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mary. All right, we're going on to outro music.
The outgoing music for this week's show.
And what music are we going to have this week?
I don't know, Tony. What are we going to have? I believe wasn't it going to be either Brad Sucks or Nine Inch Nails?
Right. I think this week we're going to go with Brad Sucks.
Okay.
And I have it queued up.
Which is the
I
name
can
of the
actually get to
band,
it
not
now.
a pejorative comment against anyone named Brad.
Exactly. And where do we go? Here we go. This one is called Fixing My Brain by Brad Sucks.
Rubber rooms and taking fun pills, filling up on notes and dollar bills. It's the price you pay for feeling okay. You're the strangest girl I've ever met, sending weird signals to my head. I've been thinking about fixing my brain, but I'm afraid I won't feel the same. 'Cause baby, it's all I do. I've been thinking about fixing my brain, but I'm afraid I won't feel the same. 'Cause baby, it's all I do. Spending more and more time up in bed, thinking about the things I think you said. It's been on my mind, and it's hard to find. Bad habits come and go. I'm afraid my mind is getting slow. I've been thinking about fixing my brain, but I'm afraid I won't feel the same. 'Cause baby, it's all I do. I've been thinking about fixing my brain, but I'm afraid I won't feel the same. 'Cause baby, it's all I do. I swear it's not so hard to understand. I just wanna get in the sun again. The sun again. The sun again. The sun again. I swear it's not so hard to understand. I just wanna get in the sun again. The sun again. The sun again. The sun again.
All right. And that was Brad Sucks, Fixing My Brain.
So is it fixed?
I think so.
Good.
So I cut that off toward the end of the song. So if you want the full song, then go ahead and go to our website when we publish the edited show.
That's right. SMLR.us.
That's right. And I think we're coming to the end of this show.
I think so.
This was you have been listening to the Sunday Morning Lex Review. This was episode 185.
Leap Spring.
Leap Spring.
This is Tony Bemis.
Mary Tomich.
And Tom Lawrence.
See you next time.
Here we go. One step at a time, don't be living on the line. I don't need a friend, I got more than on the mind. Sunshine in my brain, making everyone complain. Radio in the heart, don't be being so strange. Think I'm losing it, baby, where have you been? Everybody says that you're moving again. I don't wanna be right, baby, every single night. And I can tell you a thing about taking your time. It's making me nervous, yeah. One step at a time, don't be living on the line. I don't need a friend, I got more than on the mind. Sunshine in my brain, making everyone complain. Radio in the heart, don't be being so strange. Think I'm losing it, baby, where have you been? Everybody says that you're moving again. I don't wanna be right, baby, every single night. I can tell you the thing about taking your time. It's making me nervous, yeah. Think I'm losing it, baby, where have you been? Everybody says that you're moving again. I don't wanna be right, baby, every single night. I can tell you the thing about taking your time. It's making me nervous, yeah. It seems a little strange, but I just can't explain why I'm tearing out a page and then I'm sending it out over the ocean. And I've been feeling down lately, ever since I met you, baby. People say I'm acting crazy. They say that I'm more emotional. Yeah, there's something wrong in my mind. Yeah, there's something wrong in my mind. Yeah, there's something wrong. Well, now everybody says it's funny, but I can't say it seems very funny to me. People come and go, and I know now that you know. Just the noises in my throat say I'll take however long that it takes me. I can't understand why I need to be your man. I had the perfect plan, but right now I guess it all escapes me. Yeah, there's something wrong in my mind. Yeah, there's something wrong in my mind. Yeah, there's something say it seems very funny to me. Rooms and taking fun pills, filling up on notes and dollar bills. It's the price you pay for feeling okay. You're the strangest girl I've ever met, sending weird signals to my head. I've been thinking about fixing my brain, but I'm afraid I won't feel the same. 'Cause baby, it's all I do. I've been thinking about fixing my brain, but I'm afraid I won't feel the same. 'Cause baby, it's all I do. Spending more and more time up in bed, thinking about the things I think you said. It's been on my mind, and it's hard to find. Bad habits come and go. I'm afraid my mind is getting slow. I've been thinking about fixing my brain, but I'm afraid I won't feel the same. 'Cause baby, it's all I do. I've been thinking about fixing my brain, but I'm afraid I won't feel the same. 'Cause baby, it's all I do. I swear it's not so hard to understand. I just wanna get in the sun again, the sun again, the sun again, the sun again. I swear it's not so hard to understand. I just wanna get in the sun again, the sun again, the sun again, the sun again.
All right.
He activates the mics just as you
Just
were
in time.
coughing. Ooh, that was a robust cough.
Trying to get it all out.
Right. All right. So if you're watching us on YouTube, we are starting our second session for recording.
Yeah, and you deserve a medal for some kind of
Right.
a stamina medal.
Yeah, we're almost 2 hours in right now.
No.
Cow. We got it.
And it's sunny out.
Yeah, we got it.
We got here when it was dark.
Make this kind of short.
Yep.
Yeah, we talk too much.
Right. All right. Here we go. Oh, hold on. I muted the music thinking. Anyway, okay, here we go.
The Sunday Morning Linux Review with Mary Tomich, Tom Lawrence, and Tony Bemis as the Beaver.
And this is episode 186, USB booting? What do you wanna call
Fresh
it?
looks.
Oh, yeah, fresh looks.
Booting.
USB booting.
Or booting from booting from USB.
Yes.
All right.
Or you booting from USB.
You booting. We're booting.
I-
We're all booting.
I think you get the idea.
Right.
That's right. And
This is Tony Bemis.
Mary Tomich.
And Tom Lawrence.
Right.
I don't know what happened to me there, Tony, but normally I'm the one that kind of remembers it. I didn't remember that at all.
It's all right.
You're supposed to intro
Between the
ourselves.
three of us.
Second episode, as long as somebody remembers it, I think we'll
Right.
be all right. It's like the second episode in a row.
Yeah, no problem.
Of course, they're all done on the same day, so I think that might be a reason why.
Right.
So anyway, so this episode, we're taking a fresh look at booting from USB. And this, of course, is a result of an email that we got from one of our listeners, Bill, last episode, or that we talked about last episode. And we did in-depth research. We actually we mined our minds.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
like I've already used quite a few tools to create them and figured out what works best for me, and same for Tom and Mary. You've done research, so
Mhm.
but you've used them in the past too, so
I
it
have.
works out pretty good. This
I have.
was a good topic that we could just throw in since yesterday we're like, oh, what are we supposed to do?
Yeah. The
Well, we
behind the
call-
scenes is not pretty here.
Well, actually, I think what we did is really called upon some existing, the existing knowledge base that we have.
Exactly.
So, Tom, we're looking at you. No.
Oh, no, don't look at me. You know what, though? Getting back to the topic, though, we use bootable Linux distributions every single day at our office. And there's been a few of them before that are for some forensics and for some other recovery tools that are on there. But just in general, we use the bootable Ubuntu. That's how we rescue Windows.
Right off USB.
Right off USB. That's how we rescue Windows computers on a daily basis. Windows computers, apparently, with this forced upgrade to Windows 10, guess what? It doesn't always work. And when they don't work, they bring them to my store.
Mhm.
And the first thing they go is nobody backs anything up. So we pop in a Ubuntu and connect to the hard drive, figure out where all their files are, back them all up. And, this is daily. It's great, all these different Linux distributions. And I've also heard of a lot of people taking them to the library with them because they don't trust the library computers.
Yeah.
So they bring in their own little USB sticks, pop them in there and boot them up.
I'm surprised that the library security hasn't taken the step to disable the USB.
Apparently they don't have the highest tech people at the library. So
Right. Yeah, and it wouldn't be a program that they can install on the computer because you reboot, now you're outside of their operating system. So they would have to go into the BIOS and disable USB devices.
Well, that
But
can't
the
be that
problem
hard.
is
And
it
then you
would-
password protect the BIOS so
Yeah,
that enterprising customers can't go in there and Yeah.
they do.
But the problem is most keyboards and mice are USB now. So now you start disabling USB.
Yep.
The keyboards and mice and other
Mm.
devices that you might require. So yeah, I don't know.
I
I
see
haven't
what you're
seen any,
saying.
but I can see how a library would require you
the-
to like scan your library card to be able to get in. And that would be a USB device and blah blah blah. There's a lot of different things.
All right. Well, I guess that was shot down.
But there are plenty of distributions out there. And so go ahead and start with Tony.
Yeah, well, actually, I think Mary, you could probably talk a little bit more about it. All I know is that the standard tool for booting from USB is the UNet boot.
Yes.
Right.
Well, I've used that. I've used that a number of times, but actually what I'm going to do because I kind of, my initial angle with this was to go and take a look at some of the tools that if you've got somebody who's using Windows but is wanting to kind of take a little exploration into the land of Linux, there are actually a couple of open source Windows tools out there for people to use if that's their preference. And I'm going to just go ahead and talk. And one of the reasons why I'm mentioning Rufus, because that's one that's and I believe that's licensed under GPL v3, is because when I took a look at the Cube's release, their suggestion and that particular distro is very security conscious, but their suggestion was to use Rufus to go ahead and transfer the ISO to using DD, of course, transferring the ISO to a USB stick.
Yeah.
So they one thing that they had mentioned is if you're going to be using that is you want to make sure that you're selecting DD image, because that way it's gonna do the DD. Which is that direct block by block, I think, transfer of information.
Okay.
So,
another good reason to use a Windows device. Say you don't have a Linux computer to use, so you need to create the USB device. But just a lot of laptops today don't have a CD drive in it.
mm-hmm.
So how are you going to burn a CD to install either Windows or Linux? And so now creating a USB boot drive. It actually uses Linux in the background to boot to either a Windows ISO or a Linux ISO, and say you're walking over to a netbook to install it on a netbook. It doesn't have a CD drive, and it's a lot easier to create a USB boot than it would be to go and buy a external CD drive and burn the CD
and
try
your
to boot
read
off
write
of
so
that.
much faster off of a USB. And just like in the last episode, we talked about the Dell and their new XPS. There's no CD-ROMs on those, so that is how you load them, is off of USB.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
It's also a fun way to try out a distro and see if it works and see what the problems are with the distro. I've used that before to try and test hardware compatibility, and that's how I discovered I had some problems. KD Plasma not liking my triple screen setup was off it kept failing on there unless I unplugged the screens. Apparently, at the time I tried it, there was some problems with the video cards, and they had a lot of workarounds in that, and I just decided to skip it. But I want to re-explore, so I really like the look of the KD Plasma desktop, and that's what I'll do. There, when the new releases of Kubuntu comes out, I'm going to give it a try, and I'll throw it on a USB, and away you go. So kind of it's a good insight into that.
Yeah, nice.
And a lot of people don't realize both pfSense and FreeNAS. FreeNAS, it's the preferred install. It's installed to a USB. So when you build a FreeNAS box, which is the open source network attached storage server, they actually have you install it on a persistent USB, which is really convenient because it's it's not on a spinning hard drive. So it's generally pretty solid. They also are using the BSD system, so they do the splits on there. And it's kind of cool. When you load an update, it flips which partition's bootable. That way, if you don't like the update, you want to roll backwards, it just resets the other one. So it writes to every other partition when it does this. And then you can choose which slice is bootable or not for rollback and persistence. It does this both in pfSense and in FreeNAS.
Nice.
So it's another easy way to do it. You can get, if you want to clone them, just like Mary said, use DD, and you can create a duplicate very easily. Pull out the thumb drive, duplicate it to another. Now you have a complete duplicate of your operating system for your firewall or for your FreeNAS and ready to go. So if there's a hardware failure or failure with that USB drive, you've already cloned it, and it's very simple to do.
All right. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And in fact, that they just plug in the back of the computer. If you type in industrial thumb drives, you can actually find that there's a couple of companies out there making some that are like you can run them through the washing machine. They're made very, very well, very, very strong, and they will stay persistent with your data on there. We buy the industrial ones. They're not that. They're like $25. You're not even talking some major. They're more expensive than the $15 one by $10, and they, you can get some of these higher quality ones, because you don't need a ton of space on there. And I like how small they are. They're the keychain. They're real small, just enough left that you can pull it back out of the USB slot. They look like the little mouse transceivers.
Oh yeah, I have seen those.
Yeah, those are the ones we get.
Yeah, that's a nice thing. If you're going to leave it in there permanent, then it's small. It doesn't get knocked off or get broken.
Right.
Or say if you have a bigger USB drive and you're worried about that, you can there's the little cable, so you can go from the header on the USB, and instead of plugging or putting it in one of the card slots, well, you could just leave it on the inside of the case of the computer, plug your USB into that, your flash drive, and then close the case, and there you have nothing external of the computer for that USB.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of the boards, the smaller boards do support plugging USB on the inside. They actually have the USB soldered to the board internally, so you can push it right into the board, which is kind of cool.
That is cool.
I suppose you could put keyloggers on that too.
Ooh,
Yeah.
But if you ever want to use a public machine, it's nice to keep a USB thumb drive ready. There's ways you can create. There's a few tools out there, so you can create a persistent USB install. It's kind of a hack because by design, USB was designed to be read only and just push things to the memory. But there's a couple different distros out there.
Live CDs.
Live CD install,
Yeah.
but it's a live USB. Yeah.
Right.
And you can keep that on your keychain. So if you go, hey, I want to use this computer to log in, but I don't know who else has access to this computer, I'm worried about the operating system on there, you can plug in, boot off the USB, and have all of your stuff.
Uh-oh.
It should have had its coffee. Hey, we're so good.
It'll go back on in a second.
Yeah, we're good.
It says broadcasting, so
Yeah,
all
we're
right.
good.
Yeah, hopefully it was just the
Hopefully
just
that
went to
black
sleep.
screen is, we're the only ones that saw it.
all right.
Hey,
It
but you
just
know
went to
what?
sleep for a minute.
We're good.
All right.
See, and that's my philosophy in life. Everything will work out. See,
Yeah.
and it just did.
But I think it's set to 2 hours, so I think that's proof we were talking
Oh.
for over 2 hours.
Oh,
Good thing we're on the other episode. We'd
right.
be in trouble. But anyway, so Tom, that's pretty informative information you've been sharing with us. Well, by the way, too, I wanted to mention along these same lines, Phosphorus just had a Indiegogo campaign that concluded. And I did donate at the, I want to say the $20 level. So what that entitled me to, maybe it's 25, but anyway, what that entitled me to was a little USB stick with my distro of choice from amongst several that they had. And I just got it yesterday. I haven't had a chance to plug it in yet, but my distro of choice, can you guess what it was?
Kubuntu.
How did you know? But anyway, I think it was a long-term support version. So I'm going to go ahead and give that a try. But yeah,
All
it was
right.
pretty cool. So and it just goes to show you how easy it is to get these things set up. I myself have used Ubuntu, I believe it's called. Is it
Unet booting.
Unet. Okay.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with Vladimir Putin. But anyway, I have used that, and I've used it successfully to transfer. But I've also done the manual approach where you DD it, and then you kind of fiddle around with a little bit to get it up and bootable.
There's a few issues with using DD straight on, unless the image
sure I
that you're
found them all.
DDing, right? If the image you're DDing is created to be a USB boot, then there's no problem. Just use that. But if you're trying to DD a CD ISO onto a flash drive, it will work, but there can be issues because sometimes the CD image is referring back to a CD drive to grab info,
Okay.
where now you're on a USB or an internal hard drive, and so it might crash on you. So that's where I ran into those problems a few years ago, and that's when I started using multisys. And I've actually run through quite a few different ones, like Yummy. I've used Yummy, and there's another one that's deprecated now that I can't find the reinstall for it. But what it does, it creates a grub boot menu.
Okay.
And then if I want to add an ISO to it, I just copy the ISO over, edit the grub boot menu, and then reboot, and now it's working. So
Nice.
that's the old one. I'm trying to see if it's still on here. It's is it?
While you talk about that, or while you look for that, I just wanted to mention too, Ubuntu has their own bootable USB stick. And it's called application, and it is called the Ubuntu Startup Disk Creator. And I personally have never tried it, but I was kind of curious if either one of you have tried that.
I have not.
It kind of limits you, yeah, as far as it says here. It allows you to create a drive for Debian or any other Debian-based OS for which you have a CD or ISO image. So there's some limitations there. But I know that UNetBoot, and I think you can. I think you've got a little more flexibility as far as what you use. But I guess it sort of makes sense that if it's from Ubuntu, it'd be probably focused on more Debian-based. I don't know, Tom, have you ever tried that at all?
Not as much that, but there is another distribution called Porteus. And it's got a cool, if you go to build.porteus, porteus.org, they let you build on the fly a custom USB persistent version of their software. And it includes things like which browser. So it's creating a lean version. So you choose the browser, choose the some of the things, whether or not you're running an AMD or NVIDIA, whether or not you want to go to GUI or text, whether or not you want to be a kiosk mode, or some of the other custom features, and it creates a persistent USB image, so you can just boot right up and have all the settings that you want specifically in there. So there's definitely some neat stuff on that. So if you wanted to, feel
set up an internet cafe,
set up a coffee on there.
Yeah, if you wanted to, yeah, I mean that approach definitely gives you more control over the user experience as far as that goes, and it makes sense. And I know we've talked about Porteus. I did a review of it probably a couple years ago, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, it's still being developed.
Yeah, so in my case, the reason I started using them is because I wanted to be able to have one drive that I can boot many tools off of.
Sure.
Because there's certain live CDs that at the time it was all live CDs that people were using, text that I knew were using, and so it was like everybody swear the ultimate boot CD is the best one, and then somebody else would be like, oh no, the sys rescue CD.
Is that one tool to rule them all? What was that from?
Yeah.
What movie was that from?
The Ring.
The
Yeah,
Ring.
okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Lord. Anyway, so I wanted to create one that I could boot off of because I knew there's an antivirus that I really liked, and for a live CD, but I didn't want to carry just that CD around. So I created my thumb drive, and the Windows version was called Xboot, and I would just throw the ISO on there. It had a tool where if you said use this ISO, then it would go through and had a script that it'd work out, so it would create the persistent data for you if you're doing a Linux boot or different things like that. So Xboot was one that I used in Windows, and the one that I use now, because from my Linux computer all the time, it's called Multisys. And both of those, I'll have the links in the show notes. But it does the same thing where it goes through, you copy, you drag and drop the ISO right into the little prompt on the window, and it goes through and it splits that out and creates a boot menu for you. And so I have one disk, or it's a terabyte hard drive I actually use, and I have like an 8 gig fat partition at the beginning for this boot, and I have or maybe it's 20 gigs, I don't know, off of a terabyte. I didn't really pay attention how much, but anyway, so I put on I have Linux Mint, I have a couple other Linux distros I was playing around with. I have a Windows 7 install. I have SpinRite. I have
Gparted?
like 3 other ones. Yeah, Gparted and Parted Magic I use on there.
Okay,
and
sure.
Clonezilla, and I have 10 different tools I have on it, and depending on the situation, what I'm doing, I can just boot to one or the other, and I'm always just carrying around the one drive, and I have everything that I need.
Yeah.
Oh, and the AVG antivirus is the live CD that I use.
Yeah, and it's nice because you can buy a 64 gig USB 3 high-speed thumb drive for under $30.
Exactly.
So you can fit tons of ISOs on there for lots of different things. It's not all the ISOs are even a full, 300-400 megs. Some of them, like Clonezilla, is really small.
Right.
He just has one. I imagine AVG antivirus is probably pretty small as well.
Right. Yeah, it's under a gig or 100. I think it's 80 megs or something. Anyway, but the reason that I went with the terabyte drive is because the second partition on there is where when I use Clonezilla or Parted Magic, that's where I throw all the images. So I'll image a computer I'm working on before I start doing destructive work on it. So if I have to go back, and because I do it so little, I don't want to put the time into creating a whole server backend to doing all my backups and stuff.
Yeah.
And I know, Tom, you have a more professional setup for that because you guys do it so much.
We're using the whole imaging server that we have in ours running off of our FreeNAS box, Crucible on there. There's a review on my blog if you want to learn more about it. But something else, since you're a resident Kali Linux resident, have you played with the Kali Linux forensics mode? Is that one of the options you've tested?
I have not.
Yeah, it's a special mode for Kali Linux to allow it to dig deeper without everything's read only, of course. So you're doing forensics investigation, so you can file recovery and things like that. So it's another feature on here, and I know that there's similar things that government agencies with 3 letters use to boot off the USB and check your drive without showing any write access to your drive, so you wouldn't know your computer was ever touched. And that's kind of what the concept is. It's everything's read only, and just go through it. So it's pretty cool too. Probably added on there. It's an option for Kali Linux.
Nice.
Called the forensics boot mode.
Boot mode. I remember looking through, and they have a bunch of different like limited editions. Not as in limited edition, like it's only going to be around a little bit, but limited as in if you want just the top 10 tools, or if you want just the Wi-Fi hacking tools or whatever. Not hacking, they're penetration testing tools.
Yeah, and I imagine it comes with like I didn't look. I imagine Scalpel's on there. I don't know if you've ever used it, but it's a file recovery tool for recovering deleted documents off a hard drive. I know it comes with Test Disk too. Is another one.
Yeah, Test Disk. Disk is what I used, and there's another one I've used. I can't remember the name, but it's based on DD. But yeah.
They're good. They're good for taking apart the hard drive as far as that. So and we know we use Test Disk way more than we should because nobody backs up anything.
Yeah, Autopsy is supposed to be a really good program too. I haven't gotten into it, but it's pretty good.
Maybe that would be a fun review too. Is go through all the different tools to recover files because that's a popular. We do it a lot.
Right. Cool.
It would be. That would be so. I don't know. Also, one thing I noted, and this was, I think this came from Make Use Of. They did a comparison of ISO to USB tools, and again, this is more from the Windows perspective, but Yummy and also Rufus were 2 of the fastest, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I've used Yummy in the past, and it works good. I just I like the multi-sys setup better. But all these tools, I forgot to tell you, all these tools I found from that Pendrive Linux website.
Yeah, that's an excellent resource for this this type of information.
Right. Yeah, and then there's so many tools on there. It's hard to find what you're looking for, or it's hard to differentiate between them unless you take time to read through them. And some are easier to install than others. Some have different options than others. So what I did is when I was looking for it, I specifically was searching for multi-system kind of installs.
Yeah, and it kind of begs for a database application where you have a drop down and it takes you through your use case where you would say, this is what I'm trying to do. And then from that, you'd have a couple of other drop downs then, the final result of which would be a list of tools. And it'd probably be a short list. It might just be 1 or 2 that would be the tools best suited for the approach that, what you're trying to do as far as creating a bootable USB. I mean, I've done it a few times and then I've had problems with it too, where I've tried to do it. And, it's sometimes hit or miss for me, as far as getting those set up. And I don't know, I'm not sure if it was a problem on the USB drive end of it or it was a PEBCAC error.
If you do scroll down on that website, so at pendrivelinux.com, you scroll down, then it does give a little bit of a breakout that they didn't have this previously when I was on the site, but it says if you're using it from a Windows computer, then it'll show all the tutorials and the tools to use from there, or from a Linux computer, or if you're going to be running it on emulation programs, like VirtualBox or different ones. And then you have a couple that are just the USB creators. So this site is more than just a list of USB device booting things. It's tutorials on how to use them and all a bunch of different stuff. So it's a really nice site.
It's been around for years.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I knew it for a long time, and then it was 5 years ago is when I started into doing this more and more. And so yeah, I would say this website's been around for 10 years at least. Yeah, it says copyright from 2006 to 2016.
10. That must be 10 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or maybe 11. Something like that. So cool.
All right. Well, that's about as much as I had to say about it.
Yeah, no, I think that covers a lot of it. So look forward to some listener feedback, more suggestions. If they have some people want to share some tips and tools, what they're using, so go ahead and send us an email. If there's something we overlooked or missed, that'd be some great information. Maybe we'll add it to the list here.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Yep.
So we're done, right? All right. So you've been listening to the Sunday Morning Linux Review. This was episode 186.
USB
Booting.
install.
Well,
Booting.
all right.
Yeah.
USB bootables.
USB
All right.
bootables. That's it.
Unet boot.
Not to be
menus.
confused with consumables.
Yes.
Right.
USB consumables.
All right.
This is Tony Bemis.
Mary Tomich.
And Tom Lawrence.
See you next time, we think.
You've been listening to the Sunday Morning Linux Review. If you would like more information about this or other shows, go to smlr.us. Feel free to send comments to show@smlr.us or give us a call at 734-258-7009. I'm John Miller. If you don't like it, you can
Fight my 8-bit metal ass. That's fight with a Y.
All right. All right.
Okay.
Goodbye, everybody. Bye, YouTubers.
Bye.
Thanks for listening.